My true story from Florida. I went to the wedding, but my daughter said, "Mom, you can't stay. Please go home." But I was the one who paid for everything, so I made one phone call. They forgot I had the power. I never thought the first words my daughter would say to me on her wedding day would break my heart like glass. "Mom, you look old and tired. This is a fancy wedding. You don't fit in here. Everyone will think I come from a poor family. Leave before people start asking questions." She didn't even look at the white flowers I brought her. She didn't see the card in my hand, the invitation it had sent me. At least I thought she did. I stood there shocked at the big glass doors of the beautiful hotel. Rich people walked past me in expensive clothes. A band played soft music under white curtains. And me. I was like a mistake they wanted to hide before anyone took pictures. The invitation was pretty. Thick white paper with gold letters. It had her name, the date, and nice words about love. But it didn't say where the wedding was. I thought maybe she forgot to write it. I called her that night. No answer. I called again the next morning. Nothing. I sent her messages asking where to go. She read them but never answered back. I even wrote to the wedding lady I found on the invitation. Still nothing. I waited and hoped she was just busy. I bought a nice blue dress with long sleeves to cover my old hands. I got my hair done brown like it was when she was little and would brush it while we watched TV together. I picked out pretty white flowers from the shop where I used to buy her birthday flowers every year, until she said flowers made her sad. The morning of the wedding, I looked online and found the place. The Sunrise Beach Hotel near Miami. I drove for 3 hours, holding the wheel tight the whole way. When I got there, I could hear music and laughing before I saw the place. I walked past white balloons and headed to the door with my flowers. Then I saw the security man, tall in a black suit with something in his ear. He stopped me and put up his hand. "What's your name?" he asked. "Linda Martinez. I'm the bride's mother." He looked at his list and shook his head. "Sorry, ma'am. You're not on here." "There must be a mistake," I said. "This is Sarah Martinez's wedding, right?" "Yes, ma'am. But I can't let you in. I'm her He didn't look mean, just blank like a robot. That made it worse. "Please," I said, trying not to cry. "I just want to give her these flowers." That's when I heard high heels clicking on the ground. Sarah appeared with 2 girls in pink dresses, her white dress flowing behind her like a cloud. She didn't look at my flowers. She looked at me like I was broken trash someone forgot to throw away. "Mom," she said loud. "I told you not to come here." "You didn't," I said quiet. "You sent me an invitation. I sent you a notice. It wasn't asking you to show up. I just wanted to be here for you. I paid for this place, Sarah. And that's all you needed to do," she snapped. "You wrote the check. Thank you. But you are not part of this party." She turned to the security man like I wasn't even there. "She is not a guest. She needs to leave." I couldn't believe it. "Sarah, I'm not trying to cause trouble." "Not today," her voice was shaking now. "You don't belong here. This is a rich people's wedding. You showing up in that cheap dress with those ugly flowers makes me look poor. People are watching. Could feel eyes on me." Camera person stopped taking pictures. One of the pink dress girls whispered to another. "Please," I whispered. "Just take the flowers. I'll go away." Sarah stepped closer and whispered so only I could hear. "You want to help. Go clean the kitchen. That's what you're good at. You were never meant to be seen." My hand opened without me meaning it to. The flowers fell down. The stems hit the ground and one flower rolled into the street. The security man put his hand on my arm, gentle but firm. "I'm leaving," I whispered. But nobody heard me. As I walked away, I didn't look back. Not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't let them see me falling apart. I had spent 24 years raising her. And in 1 minute, she taught me who I really was in her story. Shadow. A mistake to hide before the guests raised their champagne. But I had paid for the stage she stood on. And that wouldn't be the last thing I paid for. Not even close. When I first held her, I was 21, broke and alone. Her father had already left by then. Said he needed to find himself. Like being a dad was too hard. I never heard from him again. It was just me and Sarah. She came into the world red and crying, but got quiet when I talked to her. I thought, maybe this is what real love feels like. From that day on, she was my reason for waking up every morning, even when mornings came too early and sleep came too late. I worked at a restaurant during the day, cleaned offices at night, and did hair for neighbors on weekends. We lived in a tiny apartment. Sarah had the bedroom. I slept on the couch. We shared a bathroom with a leaky sink and bugs that wouldn't go away. But we made it work. She was always smart, really smart. She could read early, knew poems by age 6, and could talk to adults by age 9 like she was grown up too. Her teacher said she could go to the best colleges. I used to whisper to her while doing her hair for school, "Someday, baby girl, you're going to go places Mama never could." And she did. She got money to go to a fancy high school far away. I packed her lunches and worked more hours to buy her books and uniforms. When she got into University of Miami, I cried so hard in the restaurant parking lot they sent me home early. I put her acceptance letter in a frame. When she finished college with top grades and got a job at a big company in Miami, I told everyone who would listen, "My Sarah writes speeches for important people." But somewhere along the way, she stopped talking about me. First, I thought she just forgot. Then it became a pattern. In every newspaper story, every interview, every business meeting, she told the same story. Raised by a single parent who worked just enough to get by, whose absence made me strong. I became a sad story, a shadow, a footnote that got smaller every time she told it. She never invited me to her work parties. When I asked to visit her office once, she said she was too busy. When her photo was in Miami Magazine's Women to Watch, I looked through the whole article expecting to see my name. Nothing. She talked about teachers, professors, women at work. Not about me. Not about late nights when she was sick or homework help, or the 2 winters we went without heat so she could get braces on her teeth. Still, I never said anything. Maybe I understood. She wanted to make herself new. Maybe she needed to forget where she came from to go places I couldn't go. But when she got engaged and called me crying with happiness, I thought, maybe she remembers now. She said, "I want this day to be beautiful, Mom, like the weddings we used to watch on TV." I said, "Then we'll make it happen." She talked about the place. White stone steps, open courtyard. The flowers, roses and lilies. The dress, custom made from Italy. The guest list, over 150 names. She sounded like a little girl again, excited and bright. She never asked if I could afford to help, but I offered anyway. I took out a loan on my house. The house I had paid for over 25 years, working and cleaning while mine stayed messy. I signed the papers without thinking twice. $45,000. That was the cost of the place and all the people she wanted to hire. It would have been more, but I knew someone at the bank who gave me a good deal because no one supports a bride like her mama. I sent all the money at once. She called me crying. "You're the most generous woman I've ever known," she said. "I don't deserve you, Mom." Cried too. Not because of the money, but because it had been so long since she said something kind to me. That phone call meant more to me than the house ever did. I started making her a special sash, sewing her name by hand on soft white fabric. I imagined putting it on her before she walked down the aisle. I imagined a hug, a photo, a moment that would bring us back together. But that moment never came. Instead, I stood at her wedding door holding white flowers and hope, only to be told I was unwanted, an embarrassment, a problem. She called me cheap and trashy to my face. And I, still remembering her calling me the most generous woman, was kicked out like a stranger. The same lips that said, "You are the person I'm most grateful for," now said, "You are ruining my day. Get out." That's when I realized some people's gratitude has an expiration date. Mine expired the moment I signed that check. But what she didn't know was that I still had the receipt. And I wasn't done being her mother. Not yet. I had made the dress myself. Soft blue cotton with long sleeves to cover the wrinkles on my arms. I had sewn it quietly at night when the world was still, and I could imagine wearing it and being seen not as a burden, but as a mother. When I got out of my car that morning with flowers in my hand, the sky was clear. Clouds moved slow. The air was warm. For a moment I believed things might be different. But as I stood at the edge of the hotel, white flowers shaking in my hands, that hope died. "Ma'am, I need you to step back," the security man said again. He was trying to be nice, but his voice was firm. "I'm her mother," I said again. "I just want to leave the flowers. Maybe take one picture. That's all." He waited, then looked behind him, and that's when she came back. Sarah, no veil this time. Just her in her silk dress that fit perfectly. Every piece of her hair curled by someone who probably cost more than I used to make in a month. She walked toward me like I was a stain she needed to clean before guests arrived. I couldn't speak. My throat was tight from all the quiet I'd carried that morning. She looked down at my flowers, white roses with a blue ribbon, and then she raised her voice loud. "Don't make a scene," she said sharp. "Mom, this is not the time for you to pretend you're part of this. I just want one picture," I said. "Just one." Sarah looked around at the people arriving, at the photographers getting ready. Her voice got louder so everyone could hear. "Do not do this. Do not embarrass yourself. You are being ridiculous right now. This is a wedding, not charity. You do not belong here." The words hit me like thunder. People turned to look. I felt eyes cutting into me like knives. I looked down at my dress, the one I made with shaking hands, and suddenly it felt stupid. But I still held the flowers. "I paid for this place," I whispered. Sarah laughed, but it sounded mean. "And what? That means you get a front row seat. You think money buys you class. You're just an old ghost trying to haunt me on the one day I'm finally free." She turned to the security man. "Get her out of here." The man stepped forward, not sure what to do. I didn't wait for him to touch me. I stepped back on my own, one foot, then another, until I was off the path, standing in the grass. I looked around. Not one person helped me. Not one face looked sorry. The flower lady was decorating nearby. She didn't look up. The food people walked past me like I wasn't there. The camera people kept working like nothing happened. I bent down and put my flowers gently on a low wall near the door. I didn't want to carry them anymore. I didn't want to carry any of it anymore. Then I saw something that broke my heart. A waiter in white shirt and black vest walked by, looked down at my flowers, and with his foot, kicked them out of the way. Like you would kick trash. The roses rolled. Petals fell off. Nobody saw. Nobody cared. The flowers I had picked with trembling hands were pushed aside like garbage by someone too young to know what they meant. I turned away before the tears came. Not because I was ashamed to cry, but because I had promised myself, no more tears for people who chose not to see me. I walked back to my car alone. No pictures, no invitation, no welcome. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I still had the contract. I still had my name on the papers. I still held something they had forgotten. And I had just decided I would not go quietly. I drove home in silence. No music, no radio. Just the sound of the road and my daughter's voice echoing in my head like a broken bell. "You are being ridiculous. You don't belong here." I pulled into my driveway, parked the car, and sat behind the wheel for a long time. The sun was going down. The air had cooled, but my hands were still warm, pulsing with heat I hadn't felt in years. I walked into my house, took off my shoes, and went to the kitchen drawer where I kept all my important papers. Among old bills and insurance forms I found it. The contract, thick paper, heavy, legal. It had taken me 2 weeks to understand it the first time. The wedding planner had used big words, but I had read every single word. I had signed every page. And there it was, Section 8.2, printed clear as day. If the person paying for the wedding is kicked out or not allowed to attend without agreement, that person has the right to stop the wedding immediately for breaking the contract. I stared at those words for a long moment, then picked up my phone. The wedding planner's number was on the second page. Press call. He answered after 2 rings, sounding out of breath. "Hello, this is Marcus with Dream Day Events." "This is Linda Martinez," I said. "Oz." "Yes, ma'am. Everything's going great so far. Beautiful weather, lots of people. I need you to use section 8.2. Another pause. I'm sorry. You heard me. Section 8.2. I was kicked out. I was publicly removed by the bride, even though I'm the only person paying. I was not told this would happen. There was no agreement. I want you to stop everything right now." "Ma'am, do you understand what that means?" "I do. Are you sure you want to do this?" I looked out my window. The sky had turned deep purple. "Yes, I am sure." His voice got professional. "Understood. I will tell the technical team immediately. Please stay available if we need to check with you." Hung up. Then I waited. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at my kitchen table, looking at the door like someone might come running through it. But no one did. Instead, I imagined what was happening. Sarah standing at the altar, beautiful in silk, ready to say her vows. Guests sitting in their chairs, cameras pointed at her. And then darkness. Silence. Not a light, not a sound. Just confusion, whispers, panic. The realization that someone had pulled the plug. And that someone was me. At the exact moment my daughter stepped up to speak, every light in the place shut off. The music stopped. The microphones died. The fairy tale froze right in the middle. And I sat in my quiet kitchen, hands steady for the first time in days. They thought I had been erased, but the contract remembered me. And now, so would they. First, they thought it was just a power problem. Fuse, maybe. The kind of thing that happens when you have too many lights and not enough power. Guests whispered. The band stopped playing. The DJ tapped his computer, looked around confused. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Still nothing. The fancy lights stayed dark. The altar decorations that once glowed like magic were black. The microphones stayed dead. People moved in their seats. Some stood up. A pink dress girl whispered something to the wedding planner, who ran off with his phone to his ear. Someone near the front said, "Is this part of the show?" Another person said, "I think the system crashed." But then came a voice, sharp and shaking, from the altar steps. "Fix it." Sarah's voice cut through the courtyard. "This is my wedding. Get the lights back on now." She turned on the planner. "Where is the tech team? Where is everyone?" The planner looked upset and shook his head. "We're calling for help. There's no system error. Everything was turned off. It was done on purpose." Then the whispers started in the second row. Someone leaned toward their neighbor. "Did you hear what happened with her mom?" "What mom?" "She showed up. Said she paid for everything. Sarah kicked her out." Someone else spoke louder. "I think her mom pulled the plug. That old woman looked so sad. I saw her with flowers." More heads turned. Then someone's phone lit up. A guest had started recording from their seat, showing the dark stage, confused faces, the bride pacing in her white dress like an actor left alone on stage. Within 20 minutes, the video was shared on Facebook, then TikTok, then Twitter. The title was, "When the Bride's Mom Turns Off the Wedding She Paid For." Over 3 million views in the first day. I didn't watch it, but I heard about it the next morning when the calls started. Not from Sarah, not from family, but from strangers. Women mostly. Older women. Mothers. Daughters. People who saw something in that short video, something true. But at the hotel right then, Sarah was falling apart. She stomped back up the steps, grabbed the microphone, still dead, and threw it down. The sound of plastic breaking on stone echoed through the silent courtyard. "This is sabotage," she screamed. "She ruined everything." Silence. She turned to the audience, face red, hands shaking. "That woman is nothing. She abandoned me. She's a leech, a ghost. She is not supposed to be here." Then from the back of the courtyard, someone spoke soft. "Maybe she had her reasons." Sarah froze. "What did you say?" "I said," the woman repeated louder, "maybe she had her reasons." Few others nodded, whispered. She looked heartbroken. She brought flowers. She wasn't even rude. Sarah told her to leave. And just like that, everything changed. 4 years I had been invisible. 4 years I had been erased from my daughter's story. But in that one dark hour, the truth broke through. They didn't know my name, but they remembered me now. Sarah screamed. She destroyed my life. And someone replied, "Then maybe you should have invited her to it." The blackout became big news by the next morning. What started as a phone video from the third row turned into headlines everywhere. Mother shuts down wedding she paid for. Wedding blackout reveals family truth. And my favorite, who really paid for happily ever after? The hashtags exploded. Hashtag wedding blackout, hashtag justice for mom, hashtag not just a decoration. Within 2 days, I got calls from news shows, radio stations, even podcast people who wanted my side of the story. I said no to most of them. I wasn't looking for fame. But when Truth Revealed called a TV show known for family stories, I said yes. They flew me to New York, got me a hotel, sent a car. The producer asked if I wanted makeup. Said no. I wanted to look like myself, not the ghost my daughter tried to erase. When I walked onto the TV set, the audience was full. The host, a kind woman in a blue suit, treated me like I mattered. She introduced me as Linda Martinez, the woman behind the most talked about wedding in America. After showing the video of the dark wedding, she turned to me. "Linda," she said, "you've stayed quiet through most of this. Why speak now?" I took a breath, looked at the crowd, at the cameras, at the lights that for once were pointed at me, not past me. "They thought I was a decoration," I said. "Something you put in the corner and forget about." Quiet. Mercy. But they forgot one thing. Pause. I built the stage. The room went completely still. I paid for that day, I continued. Not just with money. With years. With work. With every sacrifice a mother makes so her child can fly higher. I gave up vacations, doctor visits, comfort, sleep. I gave her everything I had. And the one thing I asked for. A seat. Not the spotlight. Just a chair. Photo. To be present. I looked straight into the camera. When they kicked me out, they didn't just remove me from a wedding. They tried to remove me from her story. So yes, I pulled the plug. Not to ruin her day, but to remind everyone who made that day possible. The host said nothing. The audience was quiet. But their faces, some with tears, others with tight jaws, said everything. After the show aired, everything fell apart for Sarah. The company she worked for made a statement about personal conduct affecting public image. The beauty brand deal she had was cancelled. The fancy wedding photos were never posted. There were no working lights to take them with. Then came the biggest blow. The groom's family, embarrassed by the scandal, called off the legal marriage. They cancelled everything, saying there were irreconcilable family issues. Sarah deleted all her social media within a week. And me. I went home, made myself tea, and sat on my porch as the sun came up. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't being mean. I was simply whole. I now live in a small house at the edge of a quiet neighborhood, where the trees sway like dancers and the wind is soft enough to hear yourself think. It's peaceful here. The kind of peace that feels earned. I grow tomatoes in pots, lettuce in boxes, herbs on my windowsill. My hands, once dry from restaurant chemicals, are now dirty with soil and mint. I write in a journal each morning, usually with coffee by my side and a blanket on my lap, even when it's not cold, just because the weight reminds me I'm still here. No one calls me mom anymore, but that word doesn't hurt now. Some days I get letters from people who saw the story. They say things like, "You remind me of my grandmother," or "Thank you for doing what so many of us wish we could." I read every letter, even if I don't answer them all. My neighbors keep to themselves mostly, but the little girl next door visits sometimes. Her name is Emma. Is 8. Big eyes, missing her front teeth, always asking questions. One afternoon, she came into my garden while I was cutting herbs. "Miss Linda," she said, holding out a flower she picked. "I saw you on my mom's phone. You were famous." Smile. She sat next to me, legs crossed, spinning her flower stem. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." She squinted at the sky. "Does everyone get to be in the picture?" "What picture, sweetheart?" "Like life. Like those big family photos. Do some people just not get in?" Pause. The sunlight touched her cheek, glowing golden. "You don't have to be in the center of the picture," I said. "But no one has the right to erase you from it." She nodded slowly. "Okay." Then she ran off, ponytail bouncing, flower still in hand. That night, I wrote my final words in the journal I started the day Sarah's invitation arrived. I opened the last page, picked up my pen and wrote, "I don't need applause. I don't need revenge. I only need to exist. Not in someone's shadow. Not in silence. But in the light. Not crossed out. Not switched off. Not dragged away from the life I helped build. Just here as I am. Present. Whole. Undeniable." Closed the book. Stars blinked above the trees. No spotlight. No wedding arch. But finally, after all this time, I felt like I belonged. A month after everything settled, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name, Linda, in handwriting I hadn't seen since Sarah was 10. Inside was a letter. 4 short lines in her writing. "I watched the interview. I didn't expect the world to turn against me. I guess I didn't know how much of you was in me. I'm sorry for everything." No signature. No plea to call. No explanation. Just the echo of a child who once held onto my apron strings, now whispering across miles of silence. I folded the letter and put it in my journal. I didn't cry. Not because I didn't want to, but because I had already mourned her once. I don't know if forgiveness will ever come, but I know healing has already started. And that's enough. Thank you for walking this road with me. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever felt invisible in a room you helped build, or silenced in a life you carried on your back, then you know this wasn't just about a wedding. It was about worth, about being present, about being remembered. They tried to write me out, but I picked up the pen and wrote myself back in. And I'm not done yet. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told real, raw, unedited, then subscribe to Grandma True Stories right here. We don't chase applause. We speak truth. We don't beg for seats. We reclaim them. And we remember what they hoped we'd forget. So click subscribe, join me next time. And until then, never let anyone tell you that you don't belong in your own story.